So here we have the DualSense Edge PS5 Pro controller that also happens to be wireless, of course, because this is a Sony first party controller. And in fact, this is Sony's first time making a full Pro controller for the PlayStation crowd. Now, they did try it again briefly before with the back button attachment that was short-lived on the PlayStation 4, but this is the first time that we are actually getting a full Pro controller on the PlayStation 5. Quite honestly, guys, this controller is not perfect, but it is about as close as it will probably get for a long time. But this controller could definitely be improved with a revision that Sony could come out with in a year or two, and I definitely think that it would be worth upgrading to at that point. Starting off, we do have this nice hard shell case that will have no issues protecting your DualSense Edge. So once you open this bad boy up, you will see that you do have quite a few accessories that do come with the DualSense Edge. Obviously, it is going to come with a USB-C playing and charging cable, and if you want to use the controller wired, you do also have this nice little locking mechanism. It does a pretty good job at holding your wire in place if you do want to use the controller wired to have the absolute lowest latency and the most reliability. You also do get 6 total thumbstick options to choose from. You have 2 short domed options, 2 long domed options, and 2 short concave options as well. I personally do wish that they had 2 longer concave options to use because that's just my preference, especially from using Xboxes for so long. Unfortunately, Sony is definitely catering to their older crowd that probably back in the PlayStation 3 days and PS2 and PS1 days having those dome thumbsticks. Just make a little add-on pack for like 15 bucks or 20 bucks or whatever for 2 longer concave thumbsticks. That will be greatly appreciated. And you can also pull these thumbsticks off and swap them with hardly any effort. Just gotta pull on it a little bit, pops right off, and you can pop on any of these other thumbstick options. In the back of the charging case, there is also this little flap that comes open if you want to leave your controller inside of the case as well as plug it in to charge. I think that that is just a little inconvenient, so I definitely won't be using that myself, but it is kind of a nice touch if you plan on keeping your controller in the case. But this Velcro, it would be nice if they had like a little tab that was easier to grab it to pull it off, because the Velcro is pretty strong. Lastly, on the back of the controller, you do have 2 spots for 2 paddles, not 4 paddles, but a maximum of 2 paddles, and there are 2 different designs. So you do have this more traditional paddle design that's very similar to the Xbox Elite controllers as well as some of the PowerA controllers that we took a look at in the past. And then you also do have this newer half dome style that does require just a little bit more pressure to actuate, and I'm personally not a fan of it. I do understand it if you want more deliberate presses when you're working the paddles, but personally I do prefer the more traditional lever action quick style where it takes a lot less force to actuate the paddles, especially if you need to do an action repeatedly and do it in quick succession without much effort, where this definitely a lot more deliberate and it's going to be a lot more challenging to achieve. Now on the back, you also do have 3 different levels for your triggers. So you have your full press, you have your half press, and then we're going to call this last one like a 30-ish% press. Now this is great and all that it is an option, and you can also further go into the software and set additional zones if you wanted to actuate a little bit sooner or a little bit later. But in the next version of this, I would like to see a micro switch option that really cuts this travel time way down and makes it super quick to actuate in game, especially if you're playing FPS games and you want the absolute fastest response time. And unfortunately, SCUF does give you that micro switch option, but there's no way to turn it off. So if you want to use that controller to play a driving game, quite frankly, you can't. It's basically made for FPS games, and that's about it, because there's no option to switch it on and off to use the shorter press as well as the full press. So you lose access to that if you go with that kind of expensive $250 controller. Now along the front of the DualSense Edge, you also have these 2 function tabs on each thumbstick, and more or less you can use those to map different profiles for different games if you want to change your paddles, if you want to change your button layout, which is also fully customizable, and you can also set up shortcuts if you want to quick launch games or open applications or Netflix or whatever the case is. So, and it's also nice that you can also change some of the options to be like chat volume and things like that too. So you just press down and then you'll press one of the face buttons or one of the directions, and just like that you can pop out the thumbsticks. So in case you ever do catch thumbstick drift, you can buy a pair of these for $20 directly from Sony and get some brand new thumbsticks in your PlayStation DualSense Edge. And at the moment, since that's not widely available on any other controller, that is very, very nice, especially when thumbstick drift is the huge killer when it comes to having a pro controller that you use quite a bit for like 6 to 9 months is usually around the time frame that you start to catch thumbstick drift and you need to get them replaced. But before now, that was never an easy task. So huge shout out to Sony for finally coming up with a quick and easy and fairly inexpensive solution to swap out your thumbsticks very easily. Now, it is not 100% of credit going to Sony because back on the PS4, Astro did come out with the C40 and they did have swappable thumbsticks, but just the C40 didn't really catch on. Like, most people did not use the C40, but honestly speaking, this is really an improved C40 in every single way. And of course, it is a DualSense Edge, so you do have that traditional DualSense PS5 controller feel. Now that's gonna pretty much wrap up my good section of this video, but when it comes to the bad, there's really a few things, and I will say kind of major things about this controller that you may want to consider before purchasing it. So number one, the battery life is pretty short. Around like the 3.5 to 4 hour mark is when I get the low battery warning. So if you are doing a couple of gaming sessions, 2 days in a row, or you're doing one long gaming session, if you're just playing a long story game, you will have to plug in your controller more than likely if you are gaming for around 4 hours. The next thing is just some of the finishes on the controller are just not my favorite. It is very comfortable, but I'll tell you what, the glossy finishes on the front of the controller, even though you don't really touch that part of it, they are just fingerprint magnets, and I don't love the way that this feels. I don't love the way that this new trackpad feels. Like, it just feels a little bit too slippery with that glossy finish. And quite frankly, the SCUF Reflex has a significantly more improved grip design than the sides of the DualSense Edge. More or less, this is just super slippery and it makes my hands feel really clammy, and after a couple of minutes I feel like my hands are just starting to just barely sweat a little bit, and it's not from them getting hot. It's literally just from this material being so slippery. It just does not jive well with my hands, and I'm just not the biggest fan of it personally. But the SCUF, on the other hand, you have a really nice rubberized grip on the back, and then you also have this nice matte texture on the front, and my hands do not get clammy at all because it just feels so nice, especially after having this controller for around 9 months or so at this point. It just feels really good in the hand, and I don't really have any major complaints with this SCUF Reflex, other than the fact that the DualSense Edge just has a better solution to swap the thumbsticks when they do eventually catch drift. Now, along the back of the controllers, you will also realize that the DualSense Edge, like I was mentioning before, only has 2 paddles. So if you still do play a lot of Fortnite, or you find yourself needing 4 paddles on the back very often, then you will probably want to still consider something from SCUF or Hex Gaming to get more functionality from those buttons on the back of the controller. If you do want the deep software integration and the first party luxuries that you get by having a vertically integrated piece of hardware directly from the manufacturer that makes the game console, then really the DualSense Edge is going to be your first and only major choice at the moment. Of course, I did mention earlier that I would like to have 2 tall convex sticks, or at least one, because I don't really need one on my movement stick, but for my aiming stick I would like to have a tall convex stick as well. That would be pretty nice. Lastly, my final complaint about the DualSense Edge is just the fact that it does not have native Windows support, which is something that's similar to all other PlayStation controllers. Like, if you plug it up and you want to play a game like Call of Duty or whatever, usually it will work fine and recognize the controller. But if you want to play some other games that don't have native PlayStation controller support built in Windows, then you will not be able to use this until you buy this app on Steam. It's called DSX. It's $5, super easy to set up. Then you'll plug in your DualSense or DualSense Edge, and then you can set it up to be recognized as an Xbox 360 controller, and you're pretty much all good to go from there. Shoot. Why do I feel like he wasn't there? I do not like how, like, in Kill Confirm, the tags, they pop up and, like, you literally can't see anything. Now, guys, don't have high expectations for me because I'm not nearly as good on controller as I used to be. Like, give me, like, I don't know, a number of years, a great number of years, in fact. I used to be pretty freaking good, but nowadays, not so much. Okay. Hit him with the jump shot. Oh, my aim was bad.
we go. I'm doing a little something now. He wouldn't let me go around the corner. Okay, here we go. I had to pull out the AK. That's all I had to do. The AK got unlimited aim assist. Here we go. Teammates.
So in closing, the DualSense Edge, in my personal opinion, is the best value high-end controller that you can get because you can swap those thumbsticks and get rid of that thumbstick drift very easily for about 20 bucks. And there's no other controller that you can do that without completely taking the thing apart and basically buying a soldering kit and learning how to solder and desolder and all that good stuff. It's just not something that I'm interested in doing, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys are not interested in soldering and desoldering a controller, taking the whole thing apart, losing a couple screws, and then next thing you know, you're shaking your controller and you're getting some rattling noises and things like that. None of us are looking to do that. We just want a simple, easy, cost-efficient solution to be able to change our thumbsticks to alleviate the problem of thumbstick drift. Now, there is another solution. You can get some Hall effect joysticks and solder those into your SCUF controller or whatever the case is, or whatever other control that you want to use. That costs a little bit of extra money, and you still have to buy more things to do it. And I'm pretty sure that that whole solution is not necessarily easy. And let's just say that you don't do it correctly the first time, but you put your controller back together and then you plug it in and test it and it doesn't work. Now you have to take it apart again and redo it. So yeah, just buy one of these. If you really have to, buy some grips to stick on the side, and more than likely you're gonna be good to go. This thing so far is really, really good. I will leave a link in the description, of course, if you are interested in picking up a DualSense Edge for yourself. But thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to drop a like and subscribe to the channel as well. Let me know, what do you guys think about the new Sony DualSense Edge? Is this a controller for you? And are you gonna drop any other controllers for this? Like, if you guys are on PC, are you planning on picking this one up to use on PC so that you no longer catch thumbstick drift? Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.